Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for joining today. Let me get my presentation going for you. So today we're going to cover requests for quotations. My name is Tori Foley. I've been at NACE for about a year, but I've been working with Maximo for about 14 years and have quite a bit of background in supply chain purchasing. So I'm pretty excited to show you guys the request for quotations because I feel like it's an underutilized application in Maximo. So I'm pretty excited for this. Hope you guys are too. As we go, if you want to submit questions, please feel free. And I'm going to do this one a little different. We're going to look at a couple of slides and then we're going to hop right into the demo to go through it. So the request for quotations in Maximo allows you to request bids from vendors, manage any quotes that are returned back to you, then pick your vendor that you want to go with, award that vendor, and create your purchase order inside of the system from the awarded vendor inside of the request for quotation. The RFQ can start two different ways. When you create the RFQ, you can copy line items directly from a purchase requisition, and it will pull any information that you have already, or you can manually just add your lines for stock or non-stock parts or services. The rest of the slides are step-by-step how to create and walk through the process, but we're just going to dive right into our demo now and walk through it. Sorry for all the screens. Okay, so once you're in Maximo, the request for quotations application is going to be under the purchasing module. We'll go to request for quotations. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to create a new one. So at this point, our auto number, I'm going to put in what my description is, what I'm requesting. Sorry, don't mind my typing, guys. So we have some things that it's going to do in here. So it automatically starts as in progress. So we're creating this RFQ. We're working through adding our line items, our vendors, and getting our quote ready to send out, our request for quote to send out. It automatically fills in the requested by. We have the ability to put in a few dates too. So our required date is the date that we need the items back. The reply date is the date that we need a reply back from our vendor with a quote. Printed date is when it gets printed and sent to the vendor. And then our close date is the last date that we will take quotes from the vendor. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that I need my parts by the end of March. And I'm going to request that they reply by the middle of March. I haven't printed my vendor request for quote yet, so I'm not going to print anything in there. And I'm going to say that the last date that I will take anything is going to be the end of that week. I want them to have my quote to me back to me by the 16th, but I'm going to say that I will take anything until the 20th. If I have specific freight terms or shipping information that I want to put in here for this quote, I can. And then at the bottom, we have our ship to and reply to information. So this is going to print out on the request for quotation report. There's one that's out of box in Maximo, or a custom one can be created to send out to our vendor. And this is just going to be information of who we want the reply to come to, and we pick the attention to if we have somebody specific. And then if we need to put our shipping information, we'll put that in there as well. So our next part is our RFQ lines. So this is what I mentioned before, where we can either copy our purchase requisition lines, where we know that we already have an approved purchase request. We want to go ahead and pull that in here, or we can manually add our lines if it's going to be for stock parts or services that don't have a purchase request yet. I'm going to use a purchase request. So I'm going to, under more actions, do copy PR line items to RFQ. And then I'm going to find my PR. Your purchase request needs to be approved in order to use it. So I see I have my request and I have two lines. So that's why we see I have two listed here for my PR. And I can see my description, my item numbers. I want both of these. So I'm going to go ahead and check the box to bring both of these line items over because I want to get a quote for both. So my line items have been brought over. All of my information is here, my item information with all the description. If we had specific manufacturers we wanted to request, all of that could be put in here as well. We see all of that. The next step is going to be picking who we're going to send this to. So what vendors are we going to ask to send us quotes? We go to the vendors tab. So notice we already have one here. That's because that vendor was set up on the purchase request. It will pull that in for us. And then we can go ahead and add what other vendors we want to send out for quotes. We can do actions. That's going to be later. So we'll get to that. We're going to add our new row. And we are going to create the new row for the vendor. So we could do select value or go to. And I am going to pick a vendor. So now I have two different vendors here. We have contact information for who the request for quotation is going to go to. If we needed to update any of that or change it, we can. We see that we have our vendor quote number and vendor reply date. So when they send us our quotes back, this is where we're going to put some information at. So at this point, we've put in our vendors. If you had multiple vendors, more than two, you can put in as many as you need to, and you can be able to print the report and send it out to your vendors to get quotations. If you needed specific terms and conditions, just like you would on a purchase requisition or purchase order, we have the terms and conditions tab and you can add them. And then you can actually down here at the bottom, you can add specific terms for each vendor. So if you're going to a vendor that you have specific terms and conditions for, you have the ability to do that. So what we're going to do now, we're ready to send this out. So I'm going to change my status to ready to send. So we're in a ready status now. So this is ready. We can run our report, we can print it, we can email it out and send it to our vendors. So Maximo does have an out-of-box report for our request for quotation details, sorry. And we're going to go ahead and run that. And it's just pulling the basic information, right? So any required date, reply date, our ship to, reply to information, and then the items that we're requesting the quote for. So we have all of that listed here. And then again, this is a report that can be customized to show, what if you have a specific layout that you want to send, that can be customized to be sent out. So at this point, you would export your report and you would send it out to your vendor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change our status. And we're going to say that this has been sent to our vendor. So at this point, we're waiting, right? We've got our request for quotation out to our vendors. We're waiting for them to put together quotes, send them back to us. So now we've got our quotes back at this point. It's been a few days, we get it back. We're ready to put our information back into our request for quote. So you come into the request for quotation and we go to our quotations tab. So at this point, our vendors are listed here and we're going to add the quotes that they sent us. So right now we have Almark selected and we're going to come down here and select RFQ lines under actions. We're going to say they sent us a quote for both. We'll hit OK. And so it's going to pull the lines down for us. And we can scroll over here. If they send us a manufacturer that they're going to send, we can put that in. But the cost information is really what we're looking for here on our detail line. So we're going to say that this seal that we requested, they can give it to us for $500. Okay, and then I'm going to open the details on that. Another piece of this is the quote start date and end date and our delivery date. So we have a cost in here, but we also want to put in some date information. So we're going to say that they told us that this quote is good for the month of March. So we'll put our start date and our end date, and then a delivery date. So if I see my field help information, so this delivery date is the anticipated delivery date that the vendor is giving us. So if it's something that maybe they're going to deliver earlier than we requested, we said we wanted it by the 3rd week of March, but they can have it to us by the 2nd week. So we'll put our delivery date. We're going to say that they told us they can have it to us by the 13th. Oops, that's February, sorry. Here we go. They've guaranteed us that they'll have it to us by the 13th. So we put that in there with our cost information. And then always save. And then for our next line item, so they told us that this is going to cost us 100. The quote is still good for the whole month of March, just like the first item. This one is actually going to take a little bit longer, though. This one they won't be able to get us until the 20th of March. So we have our dates in here. All right, so we've put our quote information in for our first vendor. So now we're ready to check our second vendor out. So I've clicked on Hellwig, and now I see I need to add my lines and add my quote information. So I'm going to go to Actions again, select RFQ lines, and they sent us a quote for both. So we'll go ahead and choose both. And let's see. So this one, they can give us a little bit of a discount. The quote date is the same. They're telling us it's good for the whole month of March. We get a little bit of a discount, but they can't get it to us until the end of the month. So we've got that listed there. And then our second item, we'll go ahead and say quote date is going to be the same. They'll be able to get this to us a little bit earlier, though. And it's the same price. So we have our quotes in here now. So at this point, this is where the decision comes. You guys decide which vendor you're going to go with. Maybe you take into account, maybe it's a little more expensive, but it can be here quicker. Maybe it's cheaper and it's going to be a little longer. It just depends, right? Once you've decided, once you know who is going to be providing your items, so we're going to click whichever one we decide on. I'm going to go with Almar. They can get it to me a little bit faster. It's a little bit more expensive, but I don't have to wait as long. So I've clicked their vendor, and I see their quote down at the bottom. And I can either say, if maybe I'm only gonna have my purchase be for one of their items, and then I'm actually gonna purchase the second item from the other vendor. That's an option. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm gonna get both of my items from them. So I'm gonna do Actions, Award All. So at this point, we are awarding this request for quotation to Almar. Once I've done that, sorry, got excited. Once I've done that, we're going to go back up to our vendor. So remember when I did our actions before. So I make sure that I'm picking the vendor that we rewarded. I'm going to do actions, and I can create my PO from right here. So this is going to pull all this information, the quote information, the date information, all of the line item information, the vendor. It pulls all of it from this request for quotation and creates our purchase order right here. I'll let it auto number. Say what I'm purchasing. I'm going to hit OK. So now my RFQ is in a closed status, and my PO has been created. And we can go and check out our purchase order. I auto-numbered it, and that was my number. Okay, so here's my information. I've got my order date, my required date. I come down and I see my company information. I can go over to my PO lines. I see my items. I see the costs that they quoted me, and all of my information gets brought over from my request for quotation. And it even tracks it. So there's the request for quotation that we had. There's the PR that it originated from. All of that tracks with our PO. And that is the RFQ process. And at any point, just like any other application in Maximo, you do have the ability to add attachments, right? So you could attach the quotes that you got from your vendor after you put in your quote information. All of that can be attached, and then that will come over to your PO as well. It's very, it seems very simple. It's, it's more of a data entry kind of thing, but it's just an additional process to allow you to manage all of your quotes instead of maybe using spreadsheets or email inboxes. I know a lot of people use Excel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to open it up for any questions because that's the demo. Do we have any questions?
So far, there are no questions in the Q&A, so if anyone has questions, feel free to drop a question or comment there.
Absolutely. This will be one of our quicker lunch and learns. I'll give you guys a minute, maybe think of some questions, or if you want to see something else, we can do that with our request for quote.
I got a quote. This is Keith with Sandy Creek. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
So on ours, and it may have been through there, I had a mechanic come in while we were doing this. I was trying to do two things. Our POs have to go through an approval process as you're building these, like you just did. Like your PR has to be approved, and then it goes to a geo review. Will that route through that system the same way as you route a normal PR, or is this going to bypass?
Yeah, so the PR process is all still the same. The request for quotation is a different application and it doesn't require a workflow. So you can't pull the PR lines until it's been through the workflow process and is approved.
Okay.
And then when it creates the PO after you've gone through the whole request for quotation process with the vendors, when you create your PO, it creates it in awaiting approval or an entered status, and you have to go through the whole process of the workflow.
Perfect. That's all I needed.
Good question. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, if there's no other questions, I do want to thank you guys for joining us today. Be on the lookout for an invite for our next Lunch and Learn, which is going to be Tuesday, March 17th. We're going to focus on licensing and Maximo, and that's going to be done by Megan Matthews. If you guys have any questions that you think of later, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Or if you want to get the slides for this with our step-by-step instructions, please reach out to the cmms@nace.com email, and we'll be happy to send you this information. And I very much appreciate your time today, guys.
Thanks, Tori.
Thank you.
Thank you.